basically there's going to be 3 setups I would have set up for. One is trolling rod with the Marauder. If you guys haven't already had that rigged up, 80-pound trolling rod. If you don't have one, the boat has some with Marauders on it. The good firm drag setting will be trolling around most of the day, hopefully getting strikes on Wahoo, and then we'll talk about the other methods. The second method is a live bait setup. I recommend that with 40-pound test. You can even do it with 50-pound, but with a wire leader. Recommend J hooks. Do not recommend circle hooks with Wahoo, because Wahoo is basically going to eat the thing, and with a J hook you can get him in his gut, his throat, roof his mouth, where the meat's a little softer. Circle hooks sometimes don't even penetrate the jaws of Wahoo, so their jaws are super hard. And so this is pretty much a good example right here. This is probably 12 to 18 inch long leader with a 3.0, 4.0, or 5.0 J hook. And that's when your 40-pound test setup. Next, I would have a setup with 50-pound. Pretty much the same rod you guys are yo-yoing with. You want a real high speed ratio, and with all kinds of different types of Wahoo lures. This is a Raider jig, Wahoo bomb. Those darts will work. I do recommend using a single hook for Wahoo fishing. The treble hooks, the Wahoo have very hard mouths, like I said, and they have a tendency to crush treble hooks. And with a single hook, it's really hard for them to crush it, and you get a little better hook set in them. A lot of times you'll get a hook actually in the side of the mouth. Wahoo, I've gaffed a few Wahoo myself, and they actually are hanging on to the jig like this. The hook is not even in the mouth or even in the Wahoo. They hang on. They're very aggressive. They don't want to lose their lunch, and once their fish gets gaffed, obviously they open their mouth and the jig just falls right out of their mouth. So that leads to method for fishing with a jig. Same as yo-yo fishing, you don't have to cast. We'll be trolling around, so as the boat's kind of coming to a slide, you can just simply drop it over the side, let it go down 150 feet, put the reel in gear, and start whining like heck. Same as yo-yo fishing, we don't want to set the hook when we get a bite. That's the worst thing you want to do, especially with Wahoo fishing. Like I said, they have super hard mouths, and if you give them that second of freedom, your jig could fall out. And we don't want that to happen. We want to try to land as many as we possibly hook. So another thing, like I said, about yo-yo fishing is, as soon as you guys get bit, the first thing you want to do is put your rod butt in your belt. Rod butt, yeah, in your belt there. Once again, you're more concentrating on getting that in your rod belt, and then if your rod goes slack, that jig can fall out, and there goes your Wahoo. So what I recommend is when you're whining, you get a bite, and all of a sudden you don't worry about putting that thing in your belt until that fish is pulling drag. That way you know you have a good solid tension on the fish, and then you can concentrate putting the rod butt in the belt. Or another thing, like I said, you could start with your rod in the belt to go. Start off that way, so when you get a bite, you're already in prone position. So I would recommend that with a 50-pound, because you could fish it with heavy drag and you already have it wired up. So with 69 or 72 pounds wire, and it's not a finesse fishing. It's basically you're gonna get a bite. So if you want it, might as well fish with some heavier tackle, and you have a better chance of getting the Wahoo to the boat. Yes.
You want to go all the way to the top when you crank it?
I'm getting to that. Thank you. No. If you do decide to bring the lure all the way up to the surface and either recast or redrop or move to a different part of the boat, leave the jig in the water for like 5 to 10 seconds, just a foot below the water. That reason is Wahoo chase flying fish fly out of the water, and we've seen Wahoo jump out of the water. So if you take that jig and instantly bring it right out of the water, and say there's a Wahoo that you don't see and he's chasing that jig up, he's gonna follow that jig right out, and who's in front of the Wahoo? You, or the person next to you. So please, for the safety of yourself and the others and the crew and myself, 10 seconds. It might be the longest 10 seconds of your life, but leave that lure down there and then proceed to bring it out of the water and recast, please. Another setup is, if we're going to be fishing, there might be some tuna and yellowtail there and Dorado. I would just have a 50-pound bait stick with just straight tie hook. I mean, if there's tuna around, we might get a chance at catching a tuna. And like a 2-speed, 50-pound, just in case there's some tuna around, and if there's Dorado, you can use that for Dorado too, and yellowtail. The next thing, obviously, Wahoo are notorious for very fast swimming, long, quick, fast runs, so please try to stay in front of them as best as possible. And once again, try not to run the person over next to you. And then another safety thing, no open toe shoes tomorrow or the following day. Please, boots, tennis shoes, no flip-flops, sandals like that, because you don't want to put your toe into the Wahoo's mouth. Next up, once we get off your Wahoo, we're going to bring it over the rail. We're going to make an announcement. Wahoo coming over the rail. We're going to ask you just to give us some room. Step back, clear the rail, you know, 6-7 feet one way, whichever Wahoo side the Wahoo's coming over, just so, once again, no one's in the line of fire with that mouth coming over the rail. And then the last thing with the safety item, once we get your Wahoo on the boat, we're going to hit it with a bat, we're going to sedate it, and then when it comes time to taking a picture, if your Wahoo is in the box, please ask a crew member to get the Wahoo out of the box for you, especially if there's a handful of Wahoo in there. We don't want your hands in the box. And second, do not grab the Wahoo by the head. Just grab it by the handle, the tail, pick up the tail, Wahoo head's facing away from you, hold it up, snap your shot, and then slap it right back on the deck, and the crew will put it back in the box. You look at their teeth, they don't have very big teeth, they don't have fangs, they're not dinosaur looking things, but those little things are razor sharp and they will jack you up. So I don't want to be Nurse Cratchit and have to sew you up. Any questions? Yes?
I know stopping at the surface, but do you normally crank all the way up, or do you...
You know, you don't have to. You can bring it up 50, 60 feet, put it back in free spool, let it go back down, you know, 150 feet. And then start over, you know, the whole yo-yo method, just up and down, up and down, up and down until we get back to trolling. Hopefully, like I said, there hasn't been any boats there for a few days. The last boat was there, had some pretty good Wahoo fishing, so it's had some time to rest. Hopefully we'll get everybody a chance at a Wahoo, and then if it comes down to it, the few that don't have a Wahoo, we'll just basically get you trolling. Once everyone's close to having a Wahoo, we'll get those few people that don't have a Wahoo. We'll just keep trolling until you do get a Wahoo. My goal is to get at least everybody one Wahoo this trip.